Hello, this is Miss Brothers reading chapter 5. This is from Sunday, April 14th, early in the afternoon. To Captain Smith on the Titanic. Have had moderate variations of winds and clear, fine weather since leaving. Greek steamer Athenae reports passing icebergs and a large quantity of field ice today. Now we begin. This warning about ice, the second one of the day, was received on the Titanic at 1:40 on Sunday afternoon. After he read the telegram, Captain Smith headed for A deck. The earlier warning was already posted in the chart room, where all the ship's officers could see it. As he walked down the promenade, Captain Smith bumped into Bruce Ismay. Without a word, Smith handed the telegram to the director of the White Star Line. Ismay glanced at the telegram and stuck it in his pocket. The spring of 1912 was a dangerous season in the Atlantic Ocean. The winter had been unusually warm, so more icebergs than normal had broken free of the great glaciers around Greenland. These icebergs were drifting south into the shipping routes. Already, a few days into its voyage, the Titanic had received many warnings about icebergs. To be on the safe side, Captain Smith had ordered that the ship take a route 10 miles south of the normal shipping route. Captain Smith was confident that this more southern route would avoid danger. Most passengers spent the chilly Sunday afternoon indoors, playing cards or visiting with friends, old and new. In first class, Jack Thayer's mother spent the afternoon trying to cheer up her friend Emily Ryerson. Mrs. Ryerson was terribly depressed. She and her husband were hurrying home from a European vacation to attend the funeral of their son, who had been killed in a car crash only a week before. The two women sat quietly on deck chairs in the enclosed promenade on A deck. Just as the sun was beginning to set, Bruce Ismay joined them and asked Mrs. Ryerson how she was doing. Then Ismay began hunting in his pockets. "We are in among the icebergs," he declared, taking Captain Smith's telegram and showing it to the women. Ismay explained that they were planning to light 2 more boilers later that night in order to pick up the pace. That way, they would pass through the dangerous waters quickly. They would also arrive in New York early and surprise everyone. After chatting with Mrs. Ryerson and Mrs. Thayer, Ismay returned the telegram to Captain Smith so he could post it in the officers' chart room. At that time, Second Officer Charles H. Lightoller was in command of the ship. His watch would last from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. Working from previous warnings, Lightoller had already calculated that the Titanic would reach the area where ice had been spotted at about 11 that night. As he gazed from the bridge onto the open sea, Lightoller saw an ocean as still and flat as a sheet of glass. The sunset he peered into was a spectacular blaze of orange between the clear, calm sea and the cloudless purple sky. Everything was well under control. Lightoller temporarily turned over command of the bridge to First Officer William Murdoch in order to grab a quick supper. Out on the boat deck, Lightoller shuddered and wrapped his coat tightly around his body. As the sun dropped, so did the temperature. Around the corner, in the wireless office, Harold Bride was letting his radio's alternator cool off as he did some paperwork. At 7:30, when he turned the wireless set back on, Bride overheard a message being sent to another ship. 6:30 p.m., apparent time. Ship latitude 42.3 north, longitude 49.9 west. 3 large bergs 5 miles to southward of us. Bride took the message to the bridge immediately. The Titanic forged ahead, its speed unchanged. At about the same time, Jack Thayer was getting dressed for dinner. It was a special night for the Thayer family. They were dining with Captain Smith and Mayor Butt, the aide to President Taft. That night, the first-class restaurant looked like one of the finest restaurants in the richest sections of London, New York, or Paris. The wealthy diners were dressed in their very best. The men wore crisp, dark evening suits with starched white shirts and black bow ties, and tuxedo jackets or formal jackets with tails. The women wore sparkling jewelry and long gowns made of the best silks and satins. The menu that night offered an 8-course feast. Diners could order oysters, filet mignon, lamb, roast duckling, roast squab, pâté de foie gras, and more. A different bottle of fine wine was poured with each course. Of course, Captain Smith politely declined to drink any alcohol. In the second-class dining saloon, Ruth Becker and her family had a much simpler menu of fish, chicken, lamb, or turkey. After the meal was over and the dishes cleared away, the second-class passengers settled down for an evening of wholesome entertainment, singing hymns. The Reverend Ernest Carter, a British passenger, had organized the sing-along. He took requests from passengers and announced the hymns to be sung. Before each one began, Reverend Carter told everyone about the hymn's author and why it was written. The high point of the evening was the singing of Lead Kindly Light, a solo performed by passenger Marian Wright. Before she sang, Reverend Carter explained that the hymn was inspired by a shipwreck in the Atlantic Ocean. Another hymn selected was For Those in Peril on the Sea. The room was unusually hushed during this last hymn. Men and women were overcome with emotion and wept openly during the song. Back in the third-class section, the passengers weren't eating lavish meals or singing hymns. Some had formed an impromptu band and played music in the lounge. Others started dancing. Just as the party was warming up, the music suddenly stopped. A young woman in the corner screamed with terror, "No, no, no!" A crowd gathered around the woman and asked her what was wrong. Terrified, she pointed to a dark corner. It's a rat!" she exclaimed. Laughing as other women shrieked and jumped onto the chairs, the men chased the rat from corner across the floor. The music started up again. Few passengers ventured outside into the freezing night. In the wireless office, Jack Phillips had taken over for Harold Bride. Phillips sat hunched over the desk, working hard. The Titanic had at last sailed into range of Cape Race, a station on Newfoundland. Phillips was busy sending the passengers dozens and dozens of messages to the mainland. At around 9:30, Phillips received the following message from another ship. Ice report. In latitude 42 north to 41.25 north, longitude 49 west to longitude 50.3 west, saw much heavy pack ice and great number of icebergs, also field ice. Weather good, clear. Phillips was tired after staying up all night to fix the wireless. He still had a huge stack of messages to get through. This was just one of the many messages about ice that he and Harold Bride had already sent up to the bridge. He decided it could wait. Phillips wired the ship to thank them for the warning, then put it under a paperweight on his desk. He would take it to the bridge later when he had the time. Phillips had no way of knowing that the warning described an ice field dead ahead and that the Titanic was steaming into it at a high speed.